Every church used to have them. The mothers in the front pew who held that whole congregation up in prayer. Their quiet daily habits have been all but forgotten. My name is Lucille Freeman, but everyone at church just calls me Sister Lucille. If you'd like, faith and encouragement carry you through your day. Subscribe. Today, 15 daily habits of the old church mothers. And number 1 stayed with me the longest. So let's get into it. Number 15, they rose before the house did. The first thing you have to understand about a church mother is that her day did not begin when the sun came up. It began before it, long before. Mother Ruth Sanders sat in the second pew of our little church for near on 50 years, and she was up at 4:30 every morning of her life. Not because she had to be. Her children were grown and gone. Her husband was in the ground. She rose at 4:30 because she wanted the first hour of the day to belong to the Lord before it belonged to anybody else. She said it to me like this, and I have never forgotten it. Baby, the world will take every hour you give it. So give the first one to God and let the world fight over what's left. That is the whole of it, right there. Those women did not squeeze prayer into a day that was already full to the brim. They built the day around the prayer. The cooking, the working, the worrying, the grandchildren, the bills on the table, all of it got laid on top of a foundation that was already poured before daybreak. And I will be honest with you. I am not going to stand here and tell you that you must rise at 4:30. Some of you work nights. Some of you have a baby who does not care what time it is. But the principle holds no matter what your clock says. Whatever hour you first come to yourself, give the front of it to God. Before the phone, before the news, before anybody asks you for one single thing. Number 14, they blessed the house before they left it. Second habit, and it took me years to understand what she was doing. Every morning, once the coffee was on, Mother Ruth would walk through her house, not cleaning, not looking for anything, just walking, room to room, laying her hand flat on the door frames as she passed, saying, quiet as anything, peace be to this house. I thought it was a superstition when I was a girl. It is not. It is the oldest thing in the world. Those women were speaking over the place where their people slept and ate and quarreled and made up. They were claiming it. And a house that is spoken over every single morning has a different feeling in it. And I do not care who says otherwise. You can walk into a home and feel whether it has been prayed over. You know it in your chest before you sit down. It takes 90 seconds. Walk your rooms, touch the door frames if you like, say peace over the beds where your children sleep and the table where your family eats. And if you live alone, say it louder because that house needs it just the same. Number 13, they carried the word in their pocket. Now this one is nearly gone, and it grieves me. Every one of those old mothers had a scrap of paper on her. In the apron pocket, folded in the change purse, tucked down in the glove of the good hat, one verse, written out by hand. In that careful cursive they were all taught. They did not carry it to look holy. They carried it to fight with. When the doctor's office kept them waiting too long with bad news coming, they had a hand in that pocket. When a grown child called with something that broke their heart, they had a hand in that pocket. When the money did not stretch, that little folded paper came out and got read one more time. And they wrote it out by hand on purpose. There is something about your own hand moving across the page that puts a thing down inside you deeper than reading it ever will. My mother would write out the same verse every Monday morning for a whole month if she felt she had not gotten it into her yet. So take one verse this week, write it on a scrap of paper, put it where your hand goes 100 times a day. That is the habit. It is nearly free. It costs you a minute, and it will hold you up on a day you did not see coming. Let me pause here for just a moment. A long life of leaning on faith gives you more than any one video could ever hold. The scriptures that carried me through, the little prayers and quiet lessons that got me up on the hard mornings, I finally sat down and put all of it into a book. Start to finish, laid out plain, the kind of comfort and encouragement you can return to whenever your heart is heavy. The link is pinned right at the top of the comments. That's the whole of it. In one place, no need to go hunt videos to find it. Take it or leave it. Now, let's get back to it. Number 12, they hummed while they worked. All right, number 12. And this is the one people miss most when those women are gone. They hummed all day long. Over the dishpan, over the ironing board, going up the stairs with the laundry basket on the hip, not performing. Half the time they did not know they were doing it, but there was always a hymn coming up out of them, low and steady, like a kettle that never quite came off the fire. And here is what I did not understand until I was grown and had troubles of my own. That humming was not idleness. That was warfare. A woman who keeps a hymn going in her mouth all day is a woman who has left no room in her mouth for complaining and no room in her mind for the thing that has been eating at her since Tuesday. You cannot hum Blessed Assurance and rehearse your grievance at the same time. It will not go. One of them has to give way, and the old mothers made sure it was the grievance, so try it. Pick one hymn, just one. Let it be the sound your house makes while you do what has to be done. You will be surprised what will not follow you into a room where a hymn is going. Everybody knows to bless a plate. What is forgotten is that those mothers blessed the meal long before it ever reached the plate. Mother Ruth prayed over her groceries when she set them on the counter. She prayed over the pot while the greens were cooking. She would stand there with a wooden spoon in her hand and say, plain as day, Lord, let this nourish whoever eats it, and let nobody leave this table hungry. That kitchen was an altar, and she treated it like one. And there is a hard piece of that habit that we do not talk about anymore. Those women cooked for people who had done them wrong. They fed the son who was breaking their heart. They fed the neighbor who talked about them. The prayer over the pot was how they got their heart right before the person walked through the door, so that what got served was food and not resentment. You want to change the whole feeling of your home? Pray over the pot, not just the plate. Do it before anybody gets there. By the time they sit down, the work is already finished. Number 10, they kept a written list of names. Every church mother I ever knew had a book, not a Bible, a second book, a little notebook, a ledger, sometimes just the back pages of the church directory. And in it were names, the sick, the wayward, the unemployed, the grandbaby nobody else would claim, written down in that same careful hand and gone through one by one every single morning. Now hear me plain about why the writing matters. Feelings forget. A list does not. When you say you will pray for somebody, you mean it in the moment, and then Thursday comes and it is gone out of you. Those women took the remembering out of their memory and put it on paper so that a person who was carried on Monday was still carried in November.
And they wrote the date beside the name. So when the answer came, they could look back and see the day they started asking.
That is how a woman builds a faith that does not wobble. She has a record. She is not guessing whether God moves. She has it written down in her own hand with the dates on it. Get a notebook, put the names in it, put the dates beside them. It is the plainest habit on this list, and it may be the one that changes you the most. Number 9, they would not leave the house unspoken for. Number 9 is short, and it is fierce. Those mothers would not step off the porch without asking the Lord to order their steps. Hand on the doorknob, purse on the arm, hat already pinned. Lord, order my steps today. Let me be where you need me and keep me from where I have no business. That second half is the part folks skip. They were not only asking to be led somewhere, they were asking to be kept from somewhere. From the conversation that would cost them their peace, from the store aisle where the money would leave the purse, from the place where their temper would meet its match. And they said it out loud every time. Because a thing said out loud at the door has a way of standing between you and your own foolishness at 3 in the afternoon. And I have watched it work. I have turned around in a parking lot and gone home without buying the thing I came for, and could not have told you why, except that I had asked to be kept that morning. Those women were not surprised by that. They expected it. They believed a day that had been asked over would arrange itself differently than a day that had not. You do not have to make a ceremony of it. Hand on the knob, 6 words, then go on out into your day covered. Number 8, they got ready for Sunday on Wednesday. This one will sound small. It is not. The good dress came out midweek. It was pressed on Thursday, not Saturday night. The shoes got wiped down, the hat came off the top shelf and got looked over. The offering was set aside and put in the envelope days ahead of time, not dug out of the bottom of a purse in the pew. Why? Because those women did not believe you could stumble into the presence of God at the last minute and get everything out of it that was there to get. They prepared to meet him. The preparing was itself a kind of worship, and by the time Sunday morning came, their hearts had been walking toward that building all week long. I will give you an honest word here, because I am not trying to put a load on anybody. This is not about clothes. Wear what you have. A church mother did not care what your dress cost, but she would have told you to decide on Wednesday what Sunday is going to be so that Sunday does not have to fight your week to get to you. Number 7, they fed somebody every single week. Every week, every single week, a plate went out that door.
Covered in foil, sometimes wrapped in a dish towel to keep the heat in, carried down the block by a grandchild with strict instructions not to run with it.
It went to the widow, to the family where somebody had lost work, to the young mother who did not know how to cook yet and was too proud to say so, and they never made it a charity. That is the piece that got lost. They did not say, I heard you were struggling. They said, I made too much. You would be doing me a favor every time. Those women knew that pride is a real thing and that a gift given the wrong way can wound a person worse than the hunger did. That is the habit. Not the food, the dignity. Cook enough for one more household and then find a way to give it that lets the other person keep their head up. Number 6, they went and sat with people. Number 6, and this one has all but vanished from the earth. They visited. In person, the sick, the shut-in, the new widow, the one who had stopped coming to church and everybody was too polite to ask about. And here is what made those visits different from what we do now. They did not go to fix anything. They went and sat, sometimes for an hour, without much said at all. A church mother could sit in a room with a grieving woman and say nothing but, for 45 minutes, and that woman would be steadier for a month afterward. We have gotten so used to sending a message and calling it care. And I am not against the phone. A call is better than nothing. And if you are far away or you are not well yourself, you use what you have. But a body in the room is a different thing than words on a screen. It says, your trouble is worth my afternoon. Pick one person this week who is going through it. Do not text. Go sit down. Number 5, they gave when they had nothing to give. Now we have to talk about the money. And I want to do it honestly. Those women were not wealthy. Most of them had never been. They gave out of very little, and they gave anyway. And they gave first. The giving came off the top before the bills got looked at, not out of what happened to be left at the end of the month. And it was not only the church envelope. It was the $5 folded into a young person's hand at the door. It was the light bill quietly paid for somebody who never found out who did it. Mother Ruth kept what she called her seed money in a coffee can on the shelf, and I never once saw that can get full because she never let it. Now hear me plain, because there is a lot of foolishness taught about this. Nobody should go without their medicine to give money away. That is not faith. That is not what those women meant, and any church that tells you otherwise has lost its way. What they had was open hands, and an open hand can hold a small amount and still be open. Number 4, they said out loud what God had done. Habit number 4. They testified constantly in the grocery line, on the porch, to the meter reader. If he stood still long enough, not preaching, reporting. The Lord made a way for me last month, and I want somebody to know it. They kept a running account out loud of what had been done for them. And it did 2 things. It built up whoever was standing there hearing it, especially somebody in the middle of their own hard season who needed to hear that a way exists. But more than that, it built up the woman saying it. Because when you say out loud what God has already done, you are reminding yourself in your own voice, in your own ears, that He has a track record with you. Mother Ruth used to say, a blessing you never mention is a blessing you will forget by winter. And a forgotten blessing cannot help you the next time you are afraid. So she never let one go by unmentioned. Most of us are silent about the good and loud about the trouble. Those mothers were the other way around. Try turning it. One thing this week, out loud to a real person. Here is what the Lord did for me. Number 3, they settled accounts before bed. Number 3, and it is the hardest one on this whole list. They would not sleep angry. Not with a husband, not with a daughter, not with a woman at church who had said something at the picnic. Before the lamp went out, it got dealt with. Either they went and made it right, or they laid it down in prayer and let it go, but it did not get carried into tomorrow. They took that straight from the scripture, do not let the sun go down on your wrath, and they meant it literally. My mother would get out of the bed and go make a phone call at 10 at night rather than take a grudge into her sleep. And I have come to believe those women lived as long as they did, partly because of this habit. They were not carrying 20 years of unforgiveness in their bodies. They emptied it out nightly, the way you would empty a dishpan, so it never had time to go sour. I know some things are too big to settle in one evening. Some wounds take years, and some need help you cannot get from a bedside prayer. But do not let the little things ferment. Deal with today's offense today. Number 2, they prayed over their children by name. And then, when the house was quiet, they went to the doorways. Every night, those mothers stood at the bedroom doors of their children and grandchildren and prayed over them by name, not bless the family, by name, out loud or under the breath, hand flat on the frame of the door. And when the children were grown and gone, the habit did not stop. It moved. Mother Ruth prayed over the empty rooms and over photographs and down a list of grandchildren scattered across 4 states who had no idea it was happening. She called their names into the dark for 30 years after the last one moved out. There are grown men and women walking around today who cannot tell you why they turned around when they did. I can tell you. Some old woman was standing in a doorway at 10 o'clock at night saying their name. Number 1, the secret place. And here is number 1, the habit that made all the others possible and the one that stayed with me the longest. Every one of those women had a place. A corner of the bedroom, a chair by the window. Mother Ruth was the pantry of all things, with the door pulled to and the light off, kneeling on a folded towel because her knees were bad. Nobody was invited. Nobody was told. What happened in that place was never repeated. And that is exactly why it worked, because there was nothing in it for anybody to see, which meant nothing in it could turn into performance. It was the one part of her life that was not for the church, not for her children, not for the neighbors. It was hers and the Lord's alone. I found her once when I was a girl, on her knees in that pantry in the dark, and she was not saying anything at all, just kneeling. And when she came out, she had a look on her face like a woman who had been somewhere. That is what I remember. She had been somewhere. Everything else on this list, the humming, the list, the plates of food, the names in the doorway, all of it came out of that room. The strength you saw in those old mothers in the front pew was not their own. They went and got it every day in a place nobody watched. So find your place. It does not have to be a pantry, a chair, a corner, the car in the driveway before you go in the house, somewhere the door shuts and nobody is watching. Go there daily. Everything else on this list will grow out of that one habit, and without it, the rest is just good manners. There it is, 15 daily habits of the old church mothers. They rose before the house. They blessed the rooms. They carried the word in a pocket. They hummed while they worked. They prayed over the pot. They wrote the names down. They would not leave the house unspoken for. They got ready for Sunday on Wednesday. They fed somebody every week. They sat with the hurting. They gave out of little. They said out loud what God had done. They settled their accounts before bed. They called their children's names in the dark. And they kept a secret place where nobody could see them. Not one of those habits cost $1. Not one requires a title or a platform or anybody's permission. And that is the very reason they got forgotten. There is nothing to sell in them. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me down in the comments about the church mother you knew her name, if you remember it, and what she did that stayed with you. And tell me what part of the country you are writing from. Because these women were everywhere, in every little church in this land. And I would dearly love to see where they still live in people's memory. I read every one of them. Next time, I want to sit down and talk about the old prayers themselves, the ones those mothers prayed word for word, handed down from their mothers before them, the kind you almost never hear anymore. Those women held up whole congregations with nothing but a notebook, a doorway, and an hour before daylight. The strength was never in them. They knew where to go and get it, and they went. Every single morning of their lives.